Hello and welcome and good morning, or good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. I have had to come off doing the live broadcast this morning because my Wi-Fi, my internet is so bad. I'm waiting to get it fixed that there is no way that I could continue by doing that. So I have decided to record this for you, but I still want you to interact. I still want to have your feedback and your ideas and your thoughts on what I'm going to talk about. Okay, so what are we going to talk about this morning? Well, originally I thought that I would talk about these books. I have this little stack of books here. The Graham Swift book, the Life of Pi book, the Kite Runner book, and the Great Gatsby book. But I am not going to do that. I've had a very sort of interesting few weeks, and a lot of it has been based around my sort of volunteering, and well, a lot of what I'm going to talk about this morning has been based around my volunteering and sort of my reaching out into the community. Now, I did a talk with you, a live discussion with you a couple of weeks ago about bereavement, and through my bereavement volunteering, I have met sort of some very interesting people and some people within the community who actually need a little bit more support than they will get from that or from other stuff that they do within the community here where I live. And I met this one chap who is very, very neuro-diverse. He's massively sort of on the spectrum. He cannot read or write, and he needs a lot of help with his day-to-day activities and his day-to-day living, really. He gets support from the community, from the government and things, but I think it really brought home how important mental health is to people, and how much of a necessity it is to be able to do basics like read and write in this world. I mean, I know that there are lots of different apps and different things like Alexa, which you can talk to get to do things, but having sort of reached out and started helping him, it's really kind of crystallized how much we rely upon being able to read and write. And that's not just about doing sort of maths or doing English or whatever it is, or being able to read a signpost or anything like that. It's to do with things like accessing things that you need, via the internet. And he doesn't have an email address for example. And it really, he's a man. I mean, he's like, almost 40, and it really beggars belief that he could have got to this point in his life without actually having had, well, first of all, decent parenting, and secondly, in the school system has obviously, let him down, or he hasn't had the correct and the right kind of education for him, and he's kind of fallen through the net, and I think it's really sad. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do what I did when I did the bereavement journey talk about bereavement. I'm going to get myself this little candle here, and I'm going to light it with one of my matches, because I think it's a really, really lovely way of acknowledging all the people out there who have difficulties, who don't have easy time of it, and who have to rely on people's goodwill and help, and they have to rely on people like me to give their free time because they want to see them improve, they want to help them with their lives. So I am going to light this candle for him, and I'm going to start this session by reading something. It's not about children, it's from Khalil Gibran, but it's not about children, because I could have read that, because I want to talk about your children, my children, the world, the young people that we have in this world, and how they are affected by mental health. So I'm going to read from my little book of wisdom, the Prophet, about self-knowledge. Self-knowledge, and I suppose with that comes knowledge. Once you understand yourself, perhaps it's easier to understand how the world works, and you see yourself kind of in the centre of the world, rather than on the outside of it and on the outskirts. And I think people who are marginalised by society and by life in general, or life is kind of, we have let these people down, really, haven't we? Are not in the centre of things because they don't have self-knowledge, because they are struggling just on a day-to-day basis, on a day-to-day level, just to kind of get through. I mean, you know, how do you know what bus to catch to go to a meeting about your mental health or a doctor's appointment if you can't read the bus signs, or you can't read the number on the letters on the bus? You know, how do you actually remember what the doctor says if you don't have somebody sitting with you, accompanying you and helping you through it? Because it's a very complex load of information to process. So self-knowledge is something which I think is often missing in people like that. And I wanted to read this because it really struck a chord when I was reading this book at the weekend and just thinking about things. Well, obviously I started reading and rereading, you know, The Great Gatsby and stuff. I've even got markers in it that I was going to read, look, and in The Kite Runner as well and stuff. And I did a lot of research into that, but actually I feel this is really poignant and really important to talk about. And I wanted to open up to you about what's been going on with him and other people that I've been helping or trying to help. So this is from the prophet. And a man said, "Speak to us of self-knowledge." And he answered, saying, "Your hearts know in silence the secrets of the days and the nights, but your ears thirst for the sound of your heart's knowledge. You would know in words that which you have always known in thought. You would touch your fingers with the naked body of your dreams. And it is well you should. The hidden wellspring of your soul must needs rise and run murmuring to the sea, and the treasure of your infinite depths would be revealed to your eyes. But let there be no scales to weigh your unknown treasure, and seek not the depths of your knowledge with staff or sounding line. For self is a sea boundless and measureless. Say not, I have found the truth, but rather, I have found a truth. Say not, I have found the path of the soul. Say rather, I have met the soul walking upon my path. For the soul walks upon all paths. The soul walks upon a line. The soul walks not upon a line, neither does it grow like a reed. The soul unfolds itself like a lotus of countless petals. And I think that's really, really poignant. And as I've been helping this chap, and obviously, you know, lots of other people, my own children, through their kind of neuro-diversities and the way their brain works or doesn't work in kind of normal spheres, I've begun to realise that actually we do walk our own paths. We don't, you know, we are like a lotus flower unfolding. I mean, every single lotus flower has its petals, and it gently unfolds and opens up, and it kind of is the kind of font of all knowledge, I suppose. If you think about a lotus flower, how it comes up from the muddy depths, through the mud, it pushes its way up through the mud from the bottom of the river or the pond or the lake, the water, comes up through all that kind of drudgery and grossness and sort of slime and, you know, decaying detritus and matter and bottom dwelling stuff, that sort of, you know, uggy stuff that is on the bottom of, you know, a pond or a lake or whatever. And up it comes, and it comes up absolutely beautifully, and it opens and unfolds petal by petal, and it becomes beautiful. And it becomes kind of all-knowing as it soaks up the sun and the moon and the fresh air and its environment, and the insects come and pollinate it, and it becomes a thing of great beauty. And I've been talking a lot recently about my flowers. Now look, I've got the flower I was talking about yesterday, this purple rose, which has got all these little kind of flecks and spots on it. It's absolutely gorgeous. I'm going to try and find out what what the actual name of that rose is. And then I've got a more conventional rose here, a sort of lovely apricot sunset, gorgeous, very kind of old-fashioned rose. And it's absolutely lovely, but they're both incredibly different, aren't they? They are so different. In fact, they couldn't be more different from each other. And that's the way I look at people. That's the way I look at everybody I meet, really. And I think my life has been a massive learning process about that. Because I would say that my children definitely reside in the purple rose camp. And sort of 90% of everybody else I know's children are in the kind of uniform beautiful in its own right, obviously, and wonderful and unique in its own right. But they certainly fall into the category of something which is more of a known quantity to us, really. And that's absolutely gorgeous, that rose. Now, taking the flower analogy and talking about individuality and mental health and how we all kind of fit into our own little slots and boxes, I suppose, whatever we are, however different we are. When my mum died, after my mother died, the funeral parlour sent me a packet of wildflower seeds. Now, I have not planted these yet, and that's very remiss of me, but I've been trying to get, as you know, my garden together, and I've been trying to plant things strategically, and I will be scattering these seeds when the time is right. But if you think about a packet like this of wildflower seeds, it's a bit like when you have children or you have a child, you become pregnant and you just don't know what's going to pop out. First of all, you don't know if it's going to be healthy in physical health and, grow and develop, as it should. Then you don't know whether it's going to be a girl or a boy or a them or a whatever it is when it comes out. All you hope, or all I hoped anyway, and I'm sure that I speak for a lot of you out there, is that my children, each and every one of them, were going to be healthy and that they were going to thrive and that they were going to be healthy mentally as well as physically. Now, these wildflowers are a bit like, there's probably, I don't know how many in there. It feels like there's quite a lot. There's probably maybe a couple of 100 in there. So that, if you think of that, that's going to be, say, the size of a nursery school or, of a kindergarten or something. And each one of those flowers, some of them may look similar, but they're all going to be different. And they're all going to be different shapes, different sizes, different colours, and they're all going to grow at different rates. And they're all going to bloom at different times. Some of them might not bloom at all. Some of them might not thrive. Some of them might end up being half the size of others or twice as big as others. Some of them might end up having, like my rose, funny little speckles in it, which make it different. Or perhaps it's not going to be, a red poppy. Perhaps it'll be a yellow one or something. So everything is going to be different. And I can remember it's my eldest son's birthday coming up in a couple of days. And I can remember when I was pregnant with him, I was not in a good place. I had just moved to New York. I was very stressed out. I was very unhealthy. And I can remember my pregnancy not being the best pregnancy at all. And because of my poor health, he had to be induced when he was 32 weeks old. He was perfectly formed. He was the most beautiful, beautiful boy, and he still is. But he was so tiny. I mean, his head was the sort of size of a satsuma. He was so tiny. I think the lowest weight that he was something like 5.2 pounds. I mean, that's like 2 little bags of sugar, really, pretty much. And he was like this very, very long, very, very skinny little old man. He came out looking like a little old man, and he was all wrinkly and everything. And because it had been such a sort of stressful birth, even though it was a natural birth, they'd had to use a ventouse. So his head, he came out looking sort of like a cone head, like a little elfy cone head. I mean, really sweet, but still, it was a pretty traumatic birth for him. I had preeclampsia. My blood pressure was 200, over 200 over 120, whatever it was. It was just horrendous. They had to put me on all sorts of drips to lower my blood pressure. I think they were worried that I was going to pop my clogs on the, in the bed. I was at Mount Sinai in New York. I had fantastic care. Everyone came to look at me because I was this kind of freak specimen of a woman in labour. I was so overweight, and I was just off the scale in terms of my my conditions that were coming to the surface as I was trying to give birth to this child. And it was very, very traumatic. And I think that trauma stayed with him in his early years. He was, he had a lot of issues growing up, and he had all sorts of problems with his digestive system and learning issues, and that has sort of culminated in a lifelong sort of neuro-diverse kind of mishmash of kind of like a soup of all sorts of different things, which has made him uniquely who he is. He is amazing. He is very clever, very talented, a fantastic artist. He's a very beautiful boy. He is a very individual, kind of very black and white, individual, headstrong person, knows his own mind, but his mind is a fragile mind, and he has his moments of actual just burnout, and he really needs a lot of support still. And we love him so much, and I just, it's been, I don't think it's ever going to change throughout his life. It's been quite a roller coaster, and there have been moments of real heartache, and it makes me feel very emotional, and it's been a struggle at times. But he's just the most amazing person, and I'm so proud of him, and I love him so much. We all do. And I think that, I hopefully have allowed him to have the space to be himself and to flourish as in the person that he is, and also given him lots and lots and lots of support as he was growing up, to get him through the difficult times, because he really was not like this rose here. He was definitely on this scale, and I always rejoiced in that, and always made him feel that it was really, really important that he could be comfortable in his own skin, and that he could be himself and be absolutely the individual person that he is. And I think that's the most important thing. I can remember a lot of my friends' children were all just very, very, well, like that other rose, just very, very kind of straight down the line. And we decided that Ollie B was not going to fit into a kind of straight normal school, so we put him into a Steiner school, which was absolutely the best thing ever. It's fantastic. In fact, my other son went there as well, and it was just brilliant, and I wish my daughter had gone there too. I think she would have thrived in that environment. And I can remember all of the competitive kind of like people that were at the school all trying to hothouse their children to get them into these very swanky schools and things in the area, and boarding schools and goodness knows what. And I was just like, you know what, that's just not going to happen. I want him at home. I want him to be around us. I want him to feel comfortable. I want him to be happy. And, and I remember a couple of things that really stuck out was I had one day, I just had this kind of epiphany that there's no point focusing on what he's bad at. It's really important to focus on what he's really good at. And what he was really good at were things like dressing up in girls' clothes, playing with dolls, making these little scenes everywhere, little kind of displays, like displays on the stairs of Japanese things, or displays of pink things or red things or whatever. He was very good at drawing, very good at all art stuff, extremely good at knitting, extremely good at, loved cooking, loved, digging around in the garden, and was just generally a massive kind of creative soul and spirit. And from the age of, since he could hold a toy, he was obsessed with Barbies and dolls and dressing up, and absolutely loved that. And I just let him get on with it. I mean, if he wanted to wear a dress to a party, then he could wear a dress. And I can remember once I wouldn't let him wear a dress when he was going to a party at his cousin's house when he was about 4, and he was really upset. and I said, look, you don't really know these people. They're not your friends at school. They don't know kind of, at nursery. They don't know you. So when you get there, go to the dressing up box and dress up in, the princess outfit from Disney Princess or whatever it is, the Snow White costume or whatever. But you're going to have to go in your shorts and t-shirt, I'm afraid. So he wasn't very happy about that. And then I said to him, look, if you don't like it, then when you're older, you can design dresses and clothes for boys or whoever that want to wear dresses and skirts and things. I mean, lots of countries around the world wear sort of, kilts in Scotland, and, Rarotonga and stuff, they wear sort of like these kind of toga things, and all over the place, a lot of the Muslim men wear long kind of dresses. Just go and do what you want. So that's what he's done. So he's just become this kind of creative force, and he does a lot of modelling and stuff, and he's been very successful in that. But he has had the full-on support of a family that love him, and siblings that love him, and friends that love him, in an environment where he's had a lot of extra help. And so now he is a successful adult, and he's absolutely, like I said, he burnt out a couple of weeks ago and came and stayed here for a couple of weeks, and it was really the worst I've seen him for a long time. But he's back on the horse again, and I think it's slowly, and he will get back to being at a kind of good equilibrium again, with a lot of support and therapy and counselling and help from his friends and loved ones. But there are people like this chap that I'm helping in the local community here, who had the most horrendous childhood. I'm not even going to begin to tell you or explain some of the things that he's told me, and that I know from attending doctors' meetings with him and things like that. It's absolutely shocking. And the whole of society, in a way, has let him down until now. I mean, now he's quite heavily involved in helping out at the local church, and he's also helps out with the local farmers markets and things like that. And people have kind of taken him into the heart of the community. And I met him, as I said, when I was volunteering, and I said to him, look, I want you to be able to read my book. I want you to be able to read my book that I made, and I'm going to give you a copy of my book, and I'm going to help you get to the point where you'll be able to open a page, any page, and you'll be able to read what is on that page. And you'll be able, it doesn't matter how fast you read it, but you'll be able to read it, and you'll be able to think about things in a way which you haven't been able to ever do in your life. And that's almost 4 decades. And I cannot imagine what that must be like. For me, a person of words and a person who loves to read, I mean, I couldn't read till I was 10, but I've certainly caught up since then. But to live until that age, I mean, he's got a daughter, it's like, and to live until that age without actually being able to live a fully functioning life, and to carry so much emotional trauma with you, it's just unthinkable. And it should not be allowed to happen in this day and age, in this country, a first world country. It shouldn't be allowed to happen. And so I am hoping one day that I might do a video of him, with his permission, reading a piece from my book. I think it might take years before we get there. I don't know. But I'm hoping that one day that he will be able to do that. That he will be able to pick up a book, whatever book it is. He will be able to read a signpost. He will be able to read a text on his phone. He will be able to text somebody else rather than a voice message. I mean, a voice message is nice, but, we take all of those things for granted. And this poor chap, he's just so out of the loop. And not only that, not only is he out of the loop, I together with a whole team of people, there's about 6 of us, are trying to get him back on track with mental health support and counselling and therapy and play therapy as well, because he has really, really been through the worst possible things that you could imagine. And he carries it with him every day, and it needs to be dealt with in a positive way so that he can move forward and not, have thoughts of suicide, and not be kind of living constantly on a kind of knife edge with, if this certain person's going to turn up on his doorstep, or that person's going to turn up, how can he cope with it? How can he deal with it? And not just go straight to the nearest bridge and want to jump off it. And it's really, really important. And when I was thinking about him, and obviously I've had my son was with me for a couple of weeks recently as well. And other people that I know who have had a lot of mental health issues. And my heart goes out for them, as I said. You know, my candle burns, is burning brightly for them. And I really, really wish that and hope that they will be able to get back on track as well. I did a bit of research because I know that all of the pandemic and COVID over those couple of years where sort of time felt like it sort of folded in on itself has and is going to have an enormous impact on people. I know from my point of view that I'm a lot less kind of out there and, courageous. I go out a lot less. I mean, I do things a lot less frequently than I used to. And I mean, it's and I'm an outgoing person. I have a lot to get out there for and to do. But I still have to push myself. But there are people who have been on their own for so long now that have kind of become fearful of going outside and fearful of stepping outside their house and doing things. And also, I'm also thinking about younger people, young teenagers and young people who have massive impact of mental health issues because of what's happened, because of lockdown and because of what they went through, and because they spent so much time not socialising with their friends, not being in the classroom, not being at university, not being little toddlers playing dress up in their nursery school, not running around in the playground, not finding out, what it's like to actually grow up in the real normal world where you can touch people and hug people, where you don't have to be fearful of going near a stranger, or well, not a stranger, but near a person. So I think that there's going to be a huge impact on sort of social and mental kind of well-being as a result of what happened during lockdown all over the world. And I know that in this country, mental health stats have gone up massively. I think 1 in 4 youngsters under the age of 18 have said that they have felt that they've had depression or anxiety in the last, couple of years. 1 in 6 say that they have repeated episodes of depression and anxiety, and that they find it difficult, and that they feel that they need help. 8 in 100 people have anxiety, young people have anxiety and depression. I mean, that's 8 in 100. That's a lot of people. And 6 in 100 have generalised anxiety, and 4 in 100 have post-traumatic stress disorder. And it just goes on and on. It's a list that just goes on and on. It's just huge. I mean, you can hardly get your head around it. And I know that, I know that other members of my family have many of those things. And it's absolutely shocking. And we come from a very supportive family. So what about people who the children slip through the net? They don't get the support from their families, or worse, they get their issues because of their family, or because of their life, the way that their living circumstances and their environment. I mean, I just think it's really, really important that as the human race, we come together and we put the human back into the race. I mean, we put the humanity back into our lives and back into our communities, and we start to really club together to support people who need it. And those people can come from people like my son, or they can come from people like the chap I'm trying to help, from different parts of the spectrum, from different parts of walks of life. And it doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter where you come from, it doesn't matter what your background is, it doesn't matter how much money you have, or what you have or don't have. It's actually across the board. So it's not just a certain little chunk of, demographic. It's across the board, and it's a big and growing problem. Sorry, I needed that. So I would like to know your thoughts on it. I know it's a bit of a heavy subject for a Monday morning, but I think it's really, really important. And the other reason why I think it's important is because everything I do on Ravenous Butterflies is because of my drive and motivation to help. It's because I am here, I think, to actually make people's lives better. And that's a bit of a sweeping statement. It's a bit of a big one, but that is absolutely what Ravenous Butterflies is all about. It's all about bringing a little bit of joy and a little bit of respite to people. It's all about embracing the different colours. It's all about, loving and caring for each other. It's about being there for each other. It's about wanting to show people that they're not alone, that there is a voice out there for them, that it doesn't, you can be heard. This is a place where you can be heard and you can share safely. And I think it's really important that all of you out there, hopefully if you've got to the end of this long broadcast, will realise that this is somewhere where we can talk to each other, where we can be a part of a kind of band of people, a tribe who actually have compassion and kindness and empathy for each other. And I think it's very, very important that to improve our mental health, even if, you come onto Ravenous Butterflies for 5 minutes in your day or 5 minutes in, before you go to bed at night, and you see something that just makes you feel better, then that's made it worth it for me. So I think that it would be great if you could make some comments on this and talk about your own issues. And I will, even though this is not a live interactive feed, I will definitely respond to each and every one of you. And I will try my very best. If I can't come up with the answers, I will try my very best to help, or to certainly offer some kind of compassionate response. So please do know that every time you make a comment here, I read it, and most of the time I will respond to it, especially if it's on the stuff that I talk about on my videos and on the live events. So I think it's well worth remembering that. And as I said, I'm very, very sorry that I couldn't be live today, and I didn't do books today. But I think this is a very important subject, and it's been kind of like burrowing into my mind, and it's been on my mind. And I wanted to share with you that I'm here. Ravenous Butterflies is here for you. This is a platform. That was kind of made for you. It's all about you. It's all about what you want. And I think it's really, really necessary to talk about mental health, and to let mental health kind of rear its head. And yes, it's the reason I'm here. And I've had my fair share of mental health issues too, and also health issues. So, nobody, well, maybe you've managed to get through life so far not having encountered any distress or upset, but I certainly haven't. And I don't know if it's made me a better person. Probably it has, the stuff that I've gone through and the things I've had to deal with, but it certainly hasn't been an easy ride. And I know for a lot of people out there, it's not an easy ride at all. And sometimes you feel like you're going to sink under the water. But just try and remember that analogy of that lotus flower coming up. And just remember that even though there may be times where you feel despair, and where you feel that you're sinking in the kind of detritus and mud of the pond or the lake, think about that lotus flower and how it pushes up through all that mud, and how it grows up from the bottom of all that kind of, pond dwelling rubbish, and pushes up through the surface of the water and becomes the most beautiful, beautiful thing that, you'll probably ever see in the plant kingdom. It is just so gorgeous. And just remember, you have the power to be that lotus flower. You have the power in you to push up and bloom and blossom and be beautiful. And you have the power to raise your head up to the sunshine and allow all of that loving energy to come into you. It doesn't matter if your lotus flower looks like this one or like this one. The fact that you are going to allow yourself to come up and to bloom through all the rubbish that can try and drag us down in life is enough. So rejoice in that. Think about that. Let me know your thoughts on what we've spoken about today. And if you have any tips on reading or any brilliant books that you think I might be able to share with my friend and help him to get on with his reading, and please do let me know in the comments below, because that would be incredibly helpful. I know a lot of you are teachers or retired teachers, and I know a lot of you have probably gone through similar things, so I would love to know your thoughts. Anyway, I'm going to love you and leave you now, but thank you so much for joining me, and hopefully my internet's going to be fixed sometime towards the middle of next week. I know it's a long time, it's a bit of a nightmare. But in the meantime, I will do these these recordings, which are live obviously, and post them for you. So lots and lots and lots and lots of love, and thank you so much for your continued support. And remember, lotus flower. If you're having a bad day, think about that lotus flower and allow yourself to slowly push up through the detritus and bloom. Bye bye.